This is Dennis Free, a good friend, DJ, event brand founder, Apple Music aficionado, and all around fantastic creative. So where are you from? How old are you? And what's your story?
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Anytime.
I'm 23, from Oakland, California. Was born and raised there pretty much, actually not my whole life, up until beginning of high school. But I grew up playing ice hockey, which was a really big part of my life, unsuspectedly, and kind of took me to a lot of different places. I started to get pretty good in the Bay Area, and started having to go out of the Bay Area to play constantly, because in the Bay there's not really many people playing hockey. So I ended up playing for a couple teams that would travel around the country and see the East Coast and see, the Midwest and all that. And then went to boarding school in Connecticut for 3 years when I was like a sophomore.
Okay.
That was a super crazy experience because I didn't anticipate that happening. But when I was in LA and in the Bay, I started getting recruited and reached out to by all these schools. And it just made sense because it was a lot. Instead of having to drive an hour to practice and whatnot, I could take a 5-minute walk to a rink and it would be super easy. I ended up getting recruited to this school called the TAP School in Watertown, Connecticut.
Okay, shout out.
Went there, shout out. Went there for 3 years, and it was there that I started really liking just the East Coast in general and going to New York all the time. Got big into music, started doing the SoundCloud rapping and all that like every other high schooler.
No, wait, you were a SoundCloud rapper?
That is not available anywhere on any DSPs.
I'm going to find it and I will link it somewhere below.
I was doing that, and that was kind of my intro into the music space generally. And then when I got to college, I kind of dropped it because everybody at a lot of schools in New York, but especially I went to Columbia, and especially at Columbia, everybody's drawn into the finance and the consulting and tech and everything.
The serious jobs.
Yeah, so I was in that for like a couple years and did some internships there, but then had a really good opportunity to be able to meet a couple people on the music side within the bank that I was at, and basically just like changed my trajectory, started working at a ton of labels.
What do you mean within the music side at the bank?
So I was basically, in my sophomore summer, I was working at Goldman Sachs doing investment banking there.
Insane.
And in the last 2 weeks of the internship, the head of our group was like, everybody's going to have a conversation with the head of the financing group just to check in on your summer or whatever. So I have this conversation. It's like 15 minutes, and she's asking us how did I like my summer and all that. And I was like, it's cool, but, I'm not obsessed with waking up every day to price AAA rated bonds. Like, that's not my forte necessarily. I like entertainment and music and all that stuff. And she was like, okay, I'll set you up with this guy named Michael Ryan Southern, who's looking after all the mergers and acquisitions on the music side. So I meet with him literally the next day at 11 a.m. and he starts talking about this company called BeatStars. And BeatStars is this marketplace for buying and selling beats. And I happen to know about it because of my SoundCloud rapping days. So I tell him all about the workflow and how you operate as a consumer, and then how the business model works and how they're doing everything that they do. And he was like, wow, this is really impressive. Like, I didn't know anything about this company. You should come later today at 3 o'clock for this client meeting that we have with someone who's looking to buy them. So I was like, oh, I guess I'll head over.
Quickly.
So I'm like, literally, I go back down to my desk, and then later that day I come back up. And the meeting is with this group called Hallwood Media. And Hallwood is this producer and songwriter management company based in LA. The CEO is this guy named Neil Jacobson, who is the president. He used to be the president of Geffen Records. Okay. The head of A&R, this guy named Corey Litwin, he is Murder Beats manager, and the CFO used to be at UMG doing all this stuff. So these huge guys, but nobody even told me what the company was that we were meeting with. So I'm like, just figuring this out based on context clues of who these people are. Wow. But eventually, 15 minutes into the meeting, I'm taking over the conversation on the Goldman side because none of my team really knew about this specific area of beats and the producer ecosystem. So I'm explaining to my boss how Lil Nas X blew up off a type beat that he found on YouTube, and he's doesn't know what a type beat is and why that's important to the hip hop ecosystem. All these different nuances. But me and the Hallwood guys were really getting along really well. So The meeting finishes. I go back to my desk, send my managing directors like a thank you note, and they're like, "You did an incredible job. Come to the dinner right now." So now it's like 9 p.m. and I walk to this steakhouse like down the street. At the time, I was vegan for like a year. I went to that steakhouse. I sat down at the table. I ate every single thing that was on that table. I was like,
was it insane
I'm not about. Yeah, it was insane
Yeah.
food, and I was like, I'm not about to like make this super awkward for everybody and have
Facts.
to order new stuff. So I just ate everything. But when I got to the table, the CEO Neil, he was like, "Dennis, I didn't realize you were an intern the way you're talking about in there. You sounded like an associate. Like you should come work for us, just in front of everybody." And I just kind of like laughed it off. But then after the dinner, we started walking back to the office, and all the Goldman people were like peeling off to go home. But the Hallwood team was staying right across the street in a hotel next to the office. So I was going back to grab my bag, and right before I turned off, he was like, "I'm serious. Like, you gotta come work for us. What's your number? Everything." So we locked in. And I wasn't able to do an internship with them immediately because I was in New York and they were in LA, of course. But they helped me get set up with this label in New York called 300 Entertainment.
Yeah.
I did royalties and rights management there, so very, very back end, kind of just going through royalty statements. Not that interesting, but a very big crossover, like my first intro into the music space. But while I was there, I was like, I'm gonna just take on everything that anybody, if anybody needs help, like I'll do it.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was my junior fall, and I was one of the only interns in New York, and so I was just putting my hand up for basically everything that was coming. I remember one time I did I set up a scavenger hunt for Megan Thee Stallion's fans. I dressed in a rat costume to be the mascot of some artist who had like. His mascot was a rat, and they needed someone to do that.
That's so New York.
Did that. So just like these random tasks, but that were not really affiliated with my specific job, but just wanted to help out wherever I can.
Yeah.
And that ended up proving to be really good because a lot of people in the company just respected that a lot and led me to a lot of other stuff. And then after that, went to RCA Records, did A&R there for this guy named Jay Grand. Really great A&R he signed Lotto, Saucy Santana, Maxwell Cream, a lot of like the Atlanta rap scene. And it was good, but at the time I was like really trying to understand every aspect of the music business. So I'd gotten the like back end royalty side, I'd gotten the label side, A&R. So then I started managing this artist, Black Hibiscus, and that was a really good experience. Really straight from ground level, so really understanding everything I needed to know to be kind of a manager. And then at the same time was also working for Bacchanal, which is our spring music festival, and I was the co-concert chair with one of my friends, Pedro, over there.
Columbia?
Yeah, at Columbia. So I got a lot of the agency kind of overlap as well. So then the last side of all of that was streaming to me. So then I started networking in the streaming space and just got conversation after conversation, just bouncing around talking to people, and ended up meeting my current boss, Steven, who I now work for, and now I look after DJ mix partnerships with any DJ mix partnerships across like any of our club, festival, brand partners on service, which is really fun. And then all the while started DJing in my going into my junior year.
Because that's how we met.
Yeah,
and we were on the same lineup.
I don't even know, where did we meet? At like probably at pianos or something.
I think so. Was it like one of Goz's events?
Probably, yeah. Definitely
like
was like a Westway one, definitely.
Or something maybe through Elias.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even remember, honestly. It must have been
somewhere. We should track it.
Yeah,
we should track it and figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so was kind of just so then out of that sprung these three different kind of paths that I'm now currently on. It's like DJing, Apple, and managing, which is all very much 100% full speed nonstop, which is a lot,
it seems like it.
But it's fun. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Amazing. So many things to ask.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, okay. Tell me about how you got into DJing though.
How did I get into DJing? So in that same summer that I met those people at Goldman.
So this is like your sophomore summer?
Yeah, between my sophomore and junior year.
Okay.
In my freshman year, actually, I was like rushing some frat, and the the frat ended up getting disbanded, but we had these speakers in the frat. And during like my winter break in my freshman year, I got really pissed off how at every party there'd be somebody in the corner like leaning like this with an aux cord on the side.
From that phone.
Yeah, because like the aux cord had to be turned a certain way for the music to come out right. So it's just a lot of it just didn't really make sense to me. So I sat in my room for 4 days on a Newmark party mix and learned how to spin on that.
Yeah, I think that might have been my first one as well.
Yeah,
just like
and it was just
little...
super small, but it was like fun, and I was doing it. I did it for like a couple parties, but nothing like crazy. So then I left school for COVID, and when I came back that following summer, started this internship, and the frat was done, but all of the stuff that belonged to the frat was still in the house.
Right.
So my friend Ant, who you know, had an apartment. Had an apartment with these 3 other guys, Renee, Ness, and Jaden, up on 107th Street in Manhattan Avenue. And we had this big group chat of all black kids who worked in finance who were sophomores. So it was very particular. But
quite niche.
Yeah, like 30 of us in this group. And their apartment had this basement that could fit maybe 200 to 250 people. So we were like, we should throw a party here. Yeah. So this spot was only maybe 10 blocks from my frat house. So I went over there, brought all the speakers from the frat, like 4 of them, and we put them in this basement. And they're these massive like PAs, so they're not any just small corners desk speakers. Put them in their basement, and then brought my controller over, and we just started doing parties like every week, every Saturday from 10 to 5, around that. And I'd just spin
10 p.m. to
5 a.m. and I'd spin the whole time. And it was
that
so
like,
hot.
What musical genre? Because obviously now you're mostly more electronic.
Yeah, it was at the time. It was mostly hip hop and Afro beats. I didn't really have the time or the knowledge to be exploring like just everything. So and a lot of the people who were coming, like it was a lot of the Nigerian crowd, same as Westway. Like everyone was like in that space, and so was I. So I was just like playing a lot of that for hours and hours and hours. And I had I was using a computer at the time, so I would just keep looking up songs like constantly. And that was fun. And then my barber actually was like, yo, you gotta go check out this spot, Pianos, downtown. And he was like, that's the best spot in the city. And I was like, oh, okay. So then, and at the time I had never really gone to Lower East Side to do anything really, because I was so far, and I'd only really been in New York freshman year, where I was trying to be up there as much as I could.
Yeah.
So then, I hadn't really experienced nightlife in Lower East Side. So I went down to Pianos, and I went inside, and I was looking for the manager, and I met this guy named Joe, who I still don't even know what his actual position is, because I thought he was the manager, but he seems to just be like a day-to-day person, and Jackson was really running everything. But anyway, I was like, could I get your number? Like, I would love to send you a mix. I didn't even have anything recorded up to that point, but I was like, I want to play here. He was like, yeah, I'm doing something right now, but like, come back later and maybe we'll talk about it. So I walk outside, and at the time they had this bouncer that had like these long dreads, massive guy, but he just had no like social awareness. So I walk outside, and I'm like, yo, I'm gonna go smoke, I'm gonna come back in like 5 minutes. He was like, okay. The line was around the corner. Yeah. And I come back to the gate, and he's like, I don't know you, like go to the back. And I was like, what the fuck?
Literally just spoke to you.
So at the time, Pianos had this they now have the the awning, but they used to have that railing that goes all the way to the end of the corner, and then the bouncers would be on the corner checking IDs, and people would walk in. Yeah. So I went to the very front of Pianos, and I just jumped over and ran inside. And then the guys started chasing me. I went downstairs, hid in the bathroom for like 10 minutes.
All just to be in Pianos.
Yeah. And I hid in there for like 10 minutes. They didn't find me. And then downstairs is where the manager's office is. So I went out, and I saw him, and I was like, yo, take down my number, whatever. And then he took down my number, and then Jackson like emailed me the next week and was like, come play for like some Wednesday or something. And then actually before he even emailed me, I got an offer to play the Pop That Pussy Party by I forgot her name, but there's this couple that did these parties like Frida. There's this couple that did these parties at pianos like every other week basically. And they're just booking random DJs, so I did one there. And just started I got like $75 for like a 4-hour set or something, and I just kept going from there. Yeah. And then it's just domino effect from there, going to spot after spot.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And how did you feel like doing those really, really long sets at the beginning? Do you think that helped you as a DJ moving forwards?
Yeah, I think, from a stamina, because it's funny because now I don't really play many sets that are longer than like 2 hours oftentimes. So it was good because I just had a really broad range of what I could do. And I didn't have to think about like someone's coming on after me. It was just like, I'm just going to play until the last person leaves the venue, which is always a fun way to approach it. The all-nighters are always cool. You just have to really understand that people are gonna come, but people are also gonna go, and you just gotta keep pushing it.
Keep thugging it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like in London it's a lot of like shorter sets, or like starting to get going. It was, an hour, 2 hours, and then obviously the clubs here, they go all night. So I've gotten used to doing like 4 or 5 hour sets.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different like way of DJing in a way, because you've got to read the room all night.
Absolutely.
And then when you go back to doing like an hour or two, you're like, this is so cute.
It's super quick. Easy. It goes by so quick. Yeah, you play like 5 songs and you're like halfway through and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, also, what would you say your identity now as a DJ is? Because obviously you mentioned you did like hip hop, kind of pop, kind of generally like popular music, but now you're definitely in electronic music. Like, what's that switch around been? And can you speak a little bit about that? Yeah,
when I went and lived in London for my last like study abroad. When I was
shout out London.
Yeah, when I was in
+44.
When I was in my senior fall, and when I was there, I'd always like liked electronic music, but I never actively thought about playing it out because none of the people I hung out with just like would go to a club that played only electronic music. But then when I went there, I got a couple sets at this one spot, Dalston Den, that was like, the ceiling was maybe 8 feet high, so hot. People banging on the CDJs to like drum and bass and jungle. So it just made me a lot more confident in like, okay, there's an audience for this. There's an audience for this.
Had you heard that music before you went there, or was it? Like
I had heard it before. I had heard it before, but not as deep as people started to get on like what I was hearing. I think. Yeah. And that was kind of a very eye-opening experience of like, okay, this crowd like exists. Because then again, like at Columbia, I had really not explored farther than the Lower East Side. I'd play pianos and play all the spots like down here. But a commute back to Columbia is so far that I had never had a justification to go to like an Elsewhere or Nowadays.
Right.
Like I'm not about to take a 2-hour Uber.
You went shopping around for your like club night experiences, yeah.
So everything was really constricted to Manhattan. But while I was in London, I was playing like Dalston Den. I played at Scotch St. James.
Shout out Scotch.
Like, and I was just playing like these spots at 3 a.m, playing UK funky, and everyone was like going crazy. And I was like, I don't know where I would experience this, at least where I was playing at currently in New York. So when I came back, I kind of made it a goal to try to immerse myself in that scene here. But because I didn't have that much access to it, just from a geography standpoint, create that scene for people who were in my area as well. So when we came back with like the level 3 parties, every party I kind of made it a goal to push further into like this electronic space, but still keeping roots of everything that we started with. So I was very like genre agnostic for a good amount of time, and I'd say I still am, depending on where the place is. But trying to bring an audience that really was like focused on hip hop and R&B and
like Afrobeats, dancehall, just
yeah,
like
bringing them into just like a new space. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Music with words, to making people comfortable to where if they go in a spot and they're not hearing words, they're still comfortable to be able to dance.
Yeah. It's so different, like the UK versus US kind of party culture. Yeah. When I was growing up, it was all drum and bass, garage, grime as well.
Yeah,
obviously we don't, there's no such thing as like grime here.
And that's what I kept noticing at Scotch, because with the nights that I play there, it would be like half the crowd was like Nigerian and half the crowd was investment bankers. So
that's what you'll get.
But everybody was vibing to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Where you'd have that same party here, and it's like people would just pick one or the other. So trying to create that space where people can adapt to different modes, which I was really trying to do. And each party that we had with Level 3 just kind of got progressively more and more kind of hitting that. So now I'm really focused. Like, I kind of had these flows through genres where, like, I'd say exactly a year ago, really heavy on garage, really heavy on like a little bit of techno, but not really, like mostly just garage and jungle.
I feel like I noticed that when you play, like you'd always start with like Black Coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'd be like, yes, you get it.
And then
you just don't hear that here.
And then now I'm in like a really classic house, like 90s house and garage phase, and a lot of techno as well. I just went to Dekmantel in Amsterdam, so that was like a great experience.
Did you go to Tomorrowland as well?
I did, yeah.
Insane.
Not my choice sonically, but it was like very good time there as well.
What were some takeaways from those experiences?
The fact that I think what I considered pop music, there's a completely different definition of that within the dance space as well.
Okay.
But I didn't realize how like really truly massive it is. Like you go to a spot like Tomorrowland and you'll see, you know,
100,000 people go, right?
600,000 over the 2 weekends,
people.
yeah. But you'll see someone like a Steve Aoki, and it's like, I could not care less what Steve Aoki's playing.
Yeah. But
there is a massive audience. But that's equivalent to like a Taylor Swift or a Drake. Like all of that is just pop in a different form. But it was just, I'd never really seen that scale before, because I've been to concerts of like pop artists and hip hop artists, but like that is just a whole different thing. Then production wise, one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. Yeah, the main stage is just absolutely massive. We like did a tour around the back of it, and it's just like a whole thing.
Is that something you aspire to? You want to end up at
no, honestly. No? I don't think I want to be like, if I were to pick just DJing as a thing, like I don't think I'd ever want to be like a massive top 40 Las Vegas DJ or anything. Yeah. I really like because it was funny because we went to Tomorrowland and then I went right after to Dekmantel, which is so on the opposite side of the spectrum of like very minimalist production, but just really quality artists.
More about the music.
Yeah. And I'd say I would much prefer to like play something like that every year than play at Tomorrowland every year.
Did you go to any UK music festivals?
No, but I want to go to Glastonbury really bad. I want to go to Warehouse Project, Lost Village, all of those. I know about all of them, and I talk to all those people.
It's hard to explain to Americans
what
that is in comparison, because like at least what we know in Europe to be American festivals is basically like Coachella.
Exactly, yeah.
Like,
and there's not really
idea.
that dance that dance. Portola is becoming kind of like that in San Francisco. They're having like a moment of, but they also get like these massive artists. It's kind of like Warehouse Project. But Warehouse Project is like all season, which is crazy, which I've never seen before. So,
how do you have any musical influence from like growing up in San Francisco? Would you say? In
terms of what I currently play, not really. Honestly, there's not that big of a like dance scene there. It was really my childhood for the Bay was really rap focused.
Yeah,
really.
I imagine so.
And my parents were like just playing random stuff, so like my dad was into obviously all the soul, like 60s 70s soul, but then also like Crosby, Stills and Nash and like U2 and all those groups, and my mom was into Fleetwood Mac and Steely Dan and
so you really split off.
Yeah, so I don't really have any palette. Yeah, it's funny because my parents actually came to my a set I had for a level 3, or when was it? It was in March or either last year or early this year at Elsewhere. They showed up at like 1 in the morning.
That's so
I was like, oh my God. But they were just vibing, and I didn't really know if they liked the music or not. But now my dad tells me he watches like a ton of my sets all the time on YouTube. So I was like, oh, okay, nice.
That's so cool. Yeah, my parents have never seen me DJ. I don't know if they'd understand what hit them, to be honest.
Yeah, it's such an interesting experience. They're like, wow, you go out into the middle of nowhere at this club in Brooklyn and do this all the time? I was like, yeah.
Basically.
That's what I do, yeah.
Oh, that's so cute. Shout out mum and dad for
Yeah,
coming and supporting
for
them.
real.
That's really cute. How do you stay on top of like finding new music then?
I'd say a few sources. One is definitely SoundCloud is a big one, but just listening to sets on SoundCloud. I don't like the algorithmic side is cool to me, and I always do like, you know, on the Spotify, the Discover Weekly and all that stuff. But like, it's funny because my Discover Weekly is actually no dance music. I don't have any like electronic or dance music on it. It's all really old like samples of songs that I know.
Interesting.
Because I think that when I'm not spinning, I'm very calm.
I've been teaching Van how to DJ.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've finished a set, which has been like 4-hour set, all very like hypey, rap, dance, you know, just dance vibes. And then woke up in the morning, he was practicing, then I had another set. And after the weekend was done, all I'd heard, like ski, just like spinning around in my head. I was like, no, I need a break.
Yeah, you don't want to listen to it like constantly, right? Exactly.
Yeah, it is a bit too much.
Yeah.
But I feel like the kind of keeping up with like new rap music, which is kind of more of what I'm in, is very different to finding new like electronic music.
Yeah,
it's
that's
completely
the thing.
different like method and kind of neural map.
It's funny because it's almost like you're not with like you're looking for anything new coming out. I'm looking for like anything that nobody has ever heard ever, and they're never gonna hear ever, and they're never gonna know what it is, which I like a lot. But then you also kind of need that overlap of stuff that people do know a little bit, so you can kind of bring them in. So that's that space I'm trying to find right now, because it's like I definitely haven't been in it for long enough to have a crazy bag of I could just go like I feel like I could play for like, you know, an all-nighter or something, but it wouldn't be just house and techno. I would have to like kind of be genre agnostic in it. Yeah. So I'm starting to try to develop that to be able to have like full nights a day of like music basically, which I have in other genres, but I don't have that yet, I'd say, across the electronic space.
Yeah, someone like I went to a New Year's Eve party in London a few years ago, and Benji B did like a 5-hour set, and that was one of the best all-night sets from one person I've ever seen, because I think he was jumping around from genres, but just the curation of the whole night felt so smooth, and I think it appealed to like so many different ears. Like, I'm a huge fan of Benji.
That's what with he's definitely one of the DJs that I look up to a bit right now, because when I'm playing like genre agnostic sets, I usually try to start in that, you know, 110 to 120 range of like I'm a piano / kind of slower house, and then move up into the 120 into house, and move up, and then you just keep moving up, and then once you get into jungle, you can just split it and come back down. Yeah, into reggae or into whatever it may be. So it's cool to have those nights where you can kind of test all night of what you're gonna do, and just kind of go around that BPM scale, which is always fun.
When you build your sets, are you a freestyler, or do you pre-plan every single transition? Like, what school of thought are you in?
I used to add like maybe 10 songs every set, and then just blend them into everything else that I'm already playing, and just do it in a different order, very random. Now I feel like the sets, well, depending on how important I feel like it is. If it's a really important one, then I'll usually plan out at least like 30 songs, but not how I'm going to transition them, not any of that. Just like these are all the same vibe, and I know they're generally the same BPM, so the transition shouldn't be that hard. I usually will set my cue points at the places that I know I want to transition out and stuff, but I'm not like this one is going to go to that one and this one is going to go to that one or anything like that. And then from there I'll just I'll play them out, but I usually will pull from other playlists and maybe put one in there, whatever. So
yeah, I'm definitely more of like a freestyler when I'm in the actual venue. obviously when you're recording a set, I'm more inclined to nitpick the transitions because then you can like go back, listen. Or actually, I feel like the effect I used was a little bit too harsh. Let me redo that or whatnot.
Yeah, I agree.
But in person, I've pre-planned so many sets, and I get to the venue and I'm starting it. And I'm like, this is not what I thought, and what this is are so different. So it's honestly every single set to me is like it's a jack in the box. You have no idea.
Also,
what you're
if the person before you is starting at a certain BPM, you're like, oh well, I guess this is where I'm starting today.
Yeah, once I was at like the DL, which is like a venue on Delancey Street. And I pulled up, I think it was like in midnight to a 1 a.m. set. So it was whoever was before me was supposed to have been like, you know, gently opening. It's literally like frat EDM.
Going crazy.
Thinking, like, what am I going to do from here?
That's always hard. Yeah, when you go after someone who's just completely different vibe than you are.
Or I was in Bushwick at Bossa Nova and the DJ before me was playing like kind of like like that, almost, I don't know, if like breakbeat vibes. I was thinking like, there's about 10 people here. Like, what the hell? But then I started playing like Pink Pantheress and that kind of more poppy, up tempo, and then I went into like essentially more like Jersey Club, and then ended up in rap, and everybody was having a great time. So I was like, okay, panic over. But do you ever get that? Do you get stage fright or?
No. I'd say I get. I'm trying to. Actually, I feel like I've gotten real stage fright one time, and it was the first time I played at Silo in this past January, and I was supposed to play like 10 to 11, and it was Odalis's party, and she was like, we'll do a 30-minute B2B at like 1:30 a.m. or something. So I played my hour, I'm chilling, my girlfriend gave me this little like shroom cap, and I was like, this is calm. And then I started like, I wasn't tweaking, but I was just like coming up pretty quick. Yeah. And I was just very happy, but I was kind of just looking at the venue and I'm like, wow, there's mad people in here. Like, this is crazy. So then it's like 12
becoming
o'clock.
Hyper aware. And
yeah.
like,
and I was like, wow, this is like a lot of people. Like, this is a big thing. And then it's like 12:30 and I'm like in the back looking at everyone, and I walk back up on the stage. And I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, I could just chill here for like an hour, but in an hour I'll be calm, like it'll be easy to go up. I walk up on the stage, and like I was going to hug my girlfriend, and I hear like, Dennis, and I turn, and it's almost like the seas had like parted, and Odalis right there, and she's like, come, you need to come right now. And I was like, oh my god,
this is not happening.
So then I get up to the front, and I'm looking around, and like the way Silo is set up is the booth is right in the middle, so everyone is just facing the middle, and I'm like, wow, like this is a lot of people. And then she's like, you better start going, because she was on the DJ before I'd left, and she was on a Serato, so she was only connected to one CDJ, so it's like I had to literally like plug in, boom boom boom, go go go. And then LeVar, Dick Bayer, came up, and he starts playing, and I didn't even know he was coming, so I'm like, oh my god, we're in a B2B to B, and these are like two crazy ass DJs. Like I need to lock in right now. So I just had to forget about everything else and just start playing. But that was also a hard one because I was just reacting, and I wasn't really like, I didn't want to be the one dictating which direction we were going, so I was just like, whatever y'all are gonna play, I'm gonna get in that same space. But it was definitely every transition I was like, okay, like slow down, get into it, you know. But it was a good one. It was definitely one of my favorite sets probably this year.
That sounds so fun.
Yeah,
totally. What was one of like your favorite sets ever?
Favorite sets ever was probably a couple months ago at Silo for
when I was there.
Party.
That was on my birthday.
Yeah.
That was so fun.
That was a crazy one, and that was just like we had the stress level that we had going into that party was so high that I've just like the fact that it went well was like amazing, but in the we started promoting it like a month and a half or 2 months before, which we probably didn't need to do, but we just like put it out. Yeah. So every day it's like, where are tickets? We sold like 4 tickets, sold 5 tickets, sold 6 tickets, and we're like, yo, this venue is massive. We can't be doing this shit.
What's the capacity like?
We ended up selling 650, and the capacity is like 500 or something. So yeah, it worked out.
I ran up to Ant and was like, yo, like, this is sick. You guys have done so well. Like, you must be so pleased. And he was like sweating. He was like,
no,
you have
so
no
stressed.
idea.
Oh my god.
What we've been through.
Everything kind of came through day of. So then by the time it got to the day, we were like, this is fantastic. And then I played, and I was like having a great time, and everybody was chilling. So yeah, I just had and I felt like that was the first, what I was saying about kind of introducing people into this new space that I was trying to get into. It was the first time where I felt like I'd built that sense of trust to where if I went in just like the house direction or just the like techno or whatever I was playing, people would not like be turned off by that. And they could follow me there, because in all the sets prior in this past year, I've slowly started to go less and less words in the songs and like kind of just more straight beats of things that I was really into, which was good.
That's so sick. Yeah, I feel like the crowd you guys bring out is like very like sonically diverse.
Yeah,
like, I know those people listen to that like Afrobeats, rap, pop, like popular music, but then to see them at a venue in Bushwick, which is electronic, I'm like, oh, you guys are,
it was cool, because it was like a lot. Someone was like, it's the first time I've seen black people break dance into house music, which is crazy. But it's true, because that's what I think, that's kind of the community that we're trying to build, is just like whatever direction we're going, you can follow us in that direction. Not every party is going to be the exact same genre, the exact same people, whatever, but like you'll be able to understand what we're trying to build in that specific space.
Yeah, it's super sick. And like, what's the process of throwing these parties? Because they're scaling up now, right? You're doing bigger venues. There's more risk involved, presumably. Like, can you talk a little bit about the scaling of Level 3?
The last few, so this year we did Ludlow House, and that was really minimal stress levels, because there was no tickets, free, everybody just invited whoever you want, it's calm. And then we did Bossa Nova. That one was a hard one because it was on a Sunday.
Right.
And then we did Elsewhere, and then Silo. And with each one, all the venues kind of act really differently. So like Bossa feels like a pretty easy one, because it's a built-in crowd, because people go there as like
regulars,
an after spot, a before, pre-spot, like whatever. So you're always going to get people who come, but impressing them is a whole nother thing, because it's very much like you go there to play some crazy shit. And a lot of, especially on a Sunday, like you'll just have the most random sporadic crowd, and some of them are going to be dancing. Like that party, me and Pedro ended up doing a B2B from 1 to 4 a.m. On a Sunday, and like people are in there to the last second dancing, which is crazy.
It's quite a late crowd there.
Very late crowd. So that one, it was just like we just had a standard structure, and you just go in, and we get a barman or whatever. I don't even think we had a barman. They just give us a fee
percentage.
And then we just do it like that. Elsewhere is also like flat fee. But
so you rented out the room, or they just gave you like a budget?
No, they
to
pay.
Work with?
They just give us a budget, and then we just can use that for whatever. But that one also, Zone 1 at Elsewhere, is always an RSVP room, so it's not,
Is that the downstairs, like?
Yeah, downstairs on the side. So you don't have to do tickets there, which is nice. You just have to get as many people to come and sign up for the RSVP. But then Silo was like, we brought in a promoter, this guy Artie, and he was doing a ton of stuff. Can you
explain what he was doing?
He basically fronted the costs for the venue, and then I just really fronted the cost for the venue, and then we both worked collaboratively on marketing from both of our sides, and then artists get paid out after the event once we get our ticket sales, basically. But that was all tickets, so we did get to keep all of the ticket sales, but the artist fees end up being high, so then you just gotta like kind of balance everything out there.
Figure it out.
Yeah,
that's so sick.
It really depends though, because Silo is also a type of venue that doesn't really, similarly with like 99 Ska or Bogart House, they usually don't give a budget for artists, so you're paying them, which is so weird, because it's like at an Elsewhere, they're promoting it, but they're giving you money. But then at a silo, you have to do all the promotion and pay them. Which is
Yeah, but
weird.
is Silo a newer venue? Or is it?
It is a newer venue. They do
Yeah.
promotion, but they just don't have like the biggest, because their events are so genre agnostic. They don't have like a built-in crowd, so everything is like a new set of people coming in.
Yeah,
like the
that's
day
what I
out-
feel like. I feel like elsewhere you have like
Elsewhere
has
is
got
like-
a brand,
exactly.
You know, whereas I feel like Silo's
and even
more,
yeah,
you
elsewhere
go there
has
for
a
the party.
exactly yeah. And even though elsewhere does have a quite genre agnostic events, people know like if you go to elsewhere, you're going there for this specific artist or whatever.
Mhm.
Silo, it's more like you're going for this specific party as opposed to like this artist playing.
Well, your party I thought was sick because like you had the videos going, you had like a performer.
Yeah.
It felt like all around.
You know, that's the
you
owner's
created-
wife,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Shout out, she was sick.
Cool
She was
thing.
really sick. I
Yeah.
think it really added to it as well.
Oh, it
Walking in
did.
and you're like, wow, there's
Mhm.
performers. You guys created a really like all around experience. Is that something that you did deliberately? Like, is that something you've been developing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that and we actually sat down after and kind of assessed where we fell short with that all around experience. Like next time we want to make sure that we have, whether it's like obviously a lot of people do stickers, but like a level 3 lighter or something that like people can take and be like, this is what
baby
we
merch,
are. Yeah. And now we're gonna start a newsletter soon and like start a we have all the radio episodes going, but then kind of keep people just informed on what we're up to all the time, because we haven't had that touch point between events of like, here's where you can find us and stuff. And I think that with a brand, that's the key thing, is just showing up a lot of places where
Yeah.
people can see you, even if it's not like a crazy thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what we're working on most right now.
Can you tell me a little bit about the radio show, just to bring up
Mhm.
the touch points?
On the radio side, I started working with Half Moon like it was like last year, and I was just doing the radio shows on my own as Level 3 Radio, and then me and Ant moved into this apartment in Brooklyn.
The famous apartment.
Yeah, and we just started like, we were like, this is a crazy setup, we should just start recording stuff here.
Yeah.
So we recorded, before we left, we recorded 23 episodes, I think, and we're just bringing mad people in. And yeah, so we're just like starting to roll those out as the Level 3 Radio episodes.
Yeah.
After that, my new apartment is probably going to be the spot, but we won't even have to do that until like probably November or something like that. But yeah, so we are using that as kind of the main through point for like consistent content and of what people can tune into, just as our branding. And what we really like about the episodes is every single episode has completely different type of music.
I noticed that.
Which I like, because I don't want it to be very,
like, predictable.
as I said, like more genre agnostic. But yeah, every person seems to be like very specific in a genre, but that makes the program overall very like genre agnostic, which I really appreciate. Because I think that if we didn't do that, it would really block off a lot of crowds that like wanted to be able to, or may have liked our program for one thing, and then they hear another thing, and then now they're introduced to that, versus like if they hear the first set on there and they don't like it, they're just not even gonna buy into like anything that we're doing.
Yeah, and also just like the ability to have a range of people you can bring in as well,
Yeah.
not pigeonholing yourself too much
absolutely.
into like one section of music. I think is like really cool. And then whatever it evolves into, it evolves. But starting broad and letting people listen to a range of stuff, I think is sick.
Yes, I do.
And what's the future for Level 3? Where do you want it to go? Do you have any like upcoming big events you're excited about? And
no events planned right now, honestly. I think that we are trying to really figure out what a next event even looks like after something like Silo, because to me that was like a pinnacle event for us. So I don't want to go down from that. Like, we have to continue, not like capacity wise, I don't really care, but more so just like the quality of that event. I don't want to revert in any way and do something that people could compare the two and be like, like they may have fell off or something like that. So we're trying to work on that. Probably we won't do another event. We've already done 4 this year. So I don't really feel like we need to do another one like right now. Probably at some point in the fall. But yeah, we're just trying to work around that. We're putting out like that newsletter, as I was saying, but then also a like a mission statement. An Ant came up with it, and it's really like surrounding what the term level 3 means, and we're thinking about it as like all of the people who are currently involved have had some like specific moment that's changed their course trajectory from whatever they thought they were going to do to now this like new unknown territory. Me being like going into this music space, and like was going to do, and is now like moving to San Francisco doing all this stuff. We have some members who have like changed. This girl Faith, who does our graphics, she used to intern at NASA, and now she's like in the music industry. So like hold these really like drastic shifts.
NASA to level 3 pipeline is crazy.
Yeah. So all these drastic shifts, and we're just trying to really highlight that as like the space for people who are contemplating those shifts or wanting to figure out who they want to be. Like that's like this is the community for them, and that can be taken in a lot of different ways.
Can you tell me a little bit about your role at Apple Music and like what all these calls are and what you do kind of throughout the day for them?
Yeah, at a high level, I'm basically 4 years ago, Apple bought Shazam, and utilizing the Shazam technology, we're able to take a DJ mix and identify all the tracks in the mix, and then also identify all the tracks in the mix. And because we're able to do that, we're able to pay out the rights holders of all those tracks at the same rate that they would get paid out if someone just streamed their album on Apple Music. Because of that, we can also pay the DJ as well as what we call a mix supplier, so a club, festival, brand, collective, whatever it may be, and pay all three of those parties. So if Calvin Harris is playing at Ushuaia and Ibiza, we can pay Calvin Harris, we can pay Ushuaia as the club, and we can pay all the rights holders that Calvin played out in his mix.
Exciting.
And then all the mixes are segmented into the actual track list as well. So although it sounds seamless throughout, you can see like individual tracks that people played. If you have anything unreleased, it'll tag it as like an ID or something like that. And then we work with all these mix suppliers, and my job with partnerships is looking after any of the kind of major ones we have with any clubs, festivals, brands, labels, whatever it may be, of people who are really invested in DJ mixes, working with the current ones that we've had in the program, but then also bringing on new suppliers with people who are just like doing cool shit in the DJ space. I work with all of our editorial leads across different geos to figure out like what they're super interested in, because obviously like I'm not an expert in what's happening in the Netherlands or something. So I'll ask those people, what are you guys super interested in? They figure it out, connect everybody, and then we kind of bring them on and do that.
So are you doing the curation yourself, or is it part of a broader team?
I'm kind of the lead of it, but then they all feed into whatever they actually want to do. So I'm never gonna be like, no,
let's
don't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there's any like groups that I'm really interested in, I'll always kind of start those convos and usually make it happen. So we had like recent ones have been like I've been right now really invested in helping, not like Tomorrowland and EDC are great, but I really love when they're collectives similar to Level 3 that are at like a bigger scale than us, who are doing really cool stuff in different cities and kind of building a community there. Like we just launched with Elevator Music last week, and they're doing these crazy sets in Chicago in this literal elevator, and they're great curation. And they're having like a really cool moment on YouTube with a lot of the sets that they're doing, and it's just like a perfect way to be able to draw people to both. Yeah. I don't think of YouTube as a competitor, because like the video aspect of DJing is such a heavy thing. Yeah. We can just act as that audio component as well, and they get paid from us too, so there's really no downsides to it. But yeah, a lot of groups like that. And then I also I'm like our production lead for any of the spatial captures we're doing. Basically, spatial audio is our core
differentiating factor.
Yeah, basically that.
Because Apple Music's super focused on like the quality of the audio quality,
right? And with spatial audio at its core, you can take like the stem components of a song and put them in three-dimensional space. But what we do with DJ mixes is instead we go to a venue, mic up the space with crowd mics everywhere, and mix all those channels in Dolby Atmos. So then when you listen back to it, it sounds like you're in the middle of the venue with the crowd noise integrated.
It's very cool.
So I basically look after our schedule of any events that we're capturing there with new suppliers and whatnot, or new or old suppliers of like big festivals that are happening. So we work closely with Tomorrowland and EDC and like Circle Loco and all these random ones around the world.
Do you think that is the future of like music streaming, is bringing that more in?
Yeah, because especially with DJ sets, like everyone just wants to be behind the DJ booth, and now we're working like on Vision Pro and stuff like that, and like being able to be just immersed in a set or immersed in a concert is like that's just what everybody wants, and then you can get it on your couch is like the best experience.
Yeah, and I feel like living in a big city like New York, we're so like desensitized to all these amazing experiences.
Yeah, like they're
but
right here every weekend.
Most people don't live in places where you could just pop down the road and see this amazing DJ,
it is crazy
all the time.
Yeah.
So so that's where the value is like globally. Most people don't have access to these
for the
events.
person who lives in
most
the
people
middle
don't have
of
guest
Kansas
lists
or
and
something.
wristbands
Absolutely.
that we're just so desensitized to.
Yeah.
But that's what do you think the future of music streaming is looking like?
Music streaming more broadly, I honestly don't know. I think that we're in there's a whole shift that's happened to where it was really the artist who was the main focus in the music ecosystem, and now it's the listener. And because it's the listener, the only way to increase the listener's happiness is by lowering the cost of everything that they have, which is crazy because we used to have a vinyl. People would save up all their bread to buy a $12 vinyl, and now people are complaining that Spotify increased the monthly subscription $1 to get all of the music in the entire world. We were literally talking about this yesterday. All of everything,
every song ever,
everything, and people are mad that they have to pay $10.99 for that.
Yeah,
like that's insane.
Do you so jumping on to sort of like your work with Black Hibiscus? Then where are you positioning like streaming numbers in terms of like the overall success ratings of his performance?
I think he's in an interesting spot because a lot of his success recently came from like one or two main tracks, so the streaming doesn't really reflect his like overall catalog. So I think that although it gives off the fact that he's a really big artist, like we're still developing a lot like his people to understand his overall catalog. Like his main song Basquiat, a lot of people, it's one of those songs where a lot of people will hear it and be like, oh, I know that song, but they don't know him or know like his discography. So right now we're in a spot where we're really trying to just get him outside as much as possible and like just in front of people to be able to see him as an artist rather than
a hit.
Exactly, because I think that's how a lot of artists can get really easily, is like you get that one song and then your entire identity is attached to that one song. And that really ruins your streaming value and your touring value, because everybody will go to your show just waiting for you to play that song. And if you stop playing that song, it's like, oh.
Well, that happened, wasn't it, with like Steve Lacy?
He's
obviously been an artist, been doing this. And then his show was swarmed with fans that only knew like the chorus of one of his songs from TikTok, and you're just like, this is so uninspiring.
Yeah, so that's why we're trying. That's what we're trying to do in New York, is kind of just build this community of like a fan base to where we can have, if he has a show, we know that there's going to be this many people who come out, whatever. And he signed with this label Monarch earlier this year, and they're doing a lot of help on that side, but.
That last video was definitely label budget.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's definitely no like I feel like it's hard, like right now the social media side is just I hate it, the fact that like we're on the phone with like reps from different social media companies, and they're just like, just post like 3 times a day and go on Instagram live like every single day, and like to me as a consumer that looks mad whack. If I see somebody who's just like fiending for attention like that,
like mobbing, so
even if that gives you 1 million followers, like I honestly don't see that as worth it from like a personal stance, because I think that it just creates this like, it's like you're a fake person almost. You're just not like
you're almost like a victim of your own success. Yeah. When all the time you're having to be performing.
Like you're like the I was just talking about it yesterday with someone or with Lila, who's our like who runs our socials, and she was like, we should just have JJ go out on the street and do the like the NPC TikTok thing. And just like stand there all day.
Bobbling around.
Thank you for the rose. Like, well, that's so insane.
Yeah, no, it's
because that's the thing. He's competing with people like that, though.
Yeah.
There's like people who are doing that, who are taking away 20 seconds of somebody listening to his song.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're just in a weird spot because there's way too much stuff going out. Same thing on the DJ side. Like every DJ, like DJs are coming up a month ago and like blowing up because they put a little transition, and then it's like,
if you do 3 transitions a day every single day for the rest of your life.
Exactly. And it's like, yeah, I guess, but it's just, it just kind of takes away the art of what you're actually doing, and it makes it very, I'm doing this for.
Well,
as soon as you have that,
because on the one hand, you have to have the numbers in order to be taken somewhat seriously.
Yeah.
Kind of, but generally, yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
But then, like in the past, you would grind for 3 months, create an amazing project, drop it, and then grind away for another 3 months quietly. And instead, now we're in this sort of like weird hamster wheel of always chasing the next little snippet of what we can post. And even I'm trying to, work out and navigate all that space. Every single creative is.
Yeah.
Or manager, or even people on the business side,
Yeah, I always think about like, or someone was telling me like, I need to start posting more clips of my sets, and but to me, I'm just like, if I put out like these TikToks of me DJing, I'm just like, it looks like I'm fiending for like some views, and I feel like I'm not in a spot where I need that, and I don't really want to have random people coming to my sets who are just there because they saw one transition that I did, and they're gonna think I. Yeah,
but do you think anyone's really gonna come to a show based on one transition?
I wouldn't say based on one transition, but I will say that I have seen DJs who have like very predominantly social media followings who are not able to. It's actually the opposite, where they're not able to get a large audience at their shows despite having 50,000-60,000 followers, because
it's dispersed.
They're like in Croatia, and like there's nobody in New York, so then they have and it's crazy from a booking perspective, because then a booker sees that and they're like, wait, I just booked you because you have this massive following, and you had 10 people show up to the set. Like, I feel like I have a much more legitimate
fan base,
or like not legit, but a relative to my size, a fan base that's reflective,
like an engaged and
relevant
fan base.
And so I don't know, I'm starting to become much more, I'm trying to make myself much more low-key on socials, where I'm not like just posting mad shit all the time, but I do want to. I wish I just had someone to like film everything, so then I could just
someone is just like a social media manager, like you can duplicate yourself to have you follow you around. Yeah. Well, what strategies are you employing with Black Hibiscus? Like, what's the plan there?
Right now we're really focusing on. Well, I think this tour will be interesting from like or these 2 tours will be interesting from like a visibility perspective, but really focusing on getting people to understand who he is outside of just music as well. He went to Georgia Tech and studied industrial design there. He has 2 other startups outside of like his music side.
He seems incredibly creative.
So it's like he has actual like or other tangible things besides music that I want people to focus on as well. So then he's kind of more thought of in a way of being just a general creative as opposed to just a musician. Because I think that will just open up so many doors in terms of partnerships and this and that.
Well, jumping off that, like in this social media era, sometimes I feel like being too broad gets people confused, whereas being hyper focused on a certain messaging, it's like propaganda, right? Repetitive, simple, same thing. And it gets into people's heads. Do you feel like trying to make him an all-round creative could be confusing?
Well, at the end of to combat that, we try to route everything still through Black Hibiscus as his like he's JJ, but it's like this is a Black Hibiscus's brand, or this is this, so everything kind of flows back through him as an artist, I guess. But yeah, trying to figure that out.
Yeah. And any upcoming projects for him that you've got going?
Yeah, he's dropping his album on October 18th called Growing Pains. And nothing. And then his next collection for Amoeba, which is his home goods brand, is dropping at the end of this year.
When I saw that, it's like a bit like Houseplant,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of similar.
Exactly. So he's got
ballpark.
ashtrays, incense holders, all that stuff.
That's so cool.
But yeah, that's like a good example of something where it's like, it's so easy for us to film a video of him, and he has like an ashtray in the corner to where you can see the overlap. Because that's the thing, there are artists who have like some random brand that has no affiliation, but for him it works well because he's
in that visual
doing
culture.
things that he utilizes all the time. And his other startup is called Morbid Electronics, and he's making like audio plugins. So then it works perfect for everything that he actually does. Yeah.
That's sick. What's your journey been like as a manager? Because I'm assuming this is your first.
Yeah.
Client.
When we started, I was just like, I'll do everything that's not the music, and I'll listen. Like, I listen to all of his early demos and stuff, and I give feedback, but I'm never like, I'm not gonna like sit in the room with him while he's recording or anything. And then anything else that needs to be dealt with, I just like figure it out. And I feel like I'm in a spot where I have enough resources to where anything that needs to get done, I know who to hit, and like I have that network, which is good.
Can you give some examples of things that needs to get done?
Like with let's see, like with shooting our album cover, for example. I know like mad photographers in the city. I ended up shooting it, but like I know mad photographers in the city who are able to help out with it. I'm like, I know this person who has and it's not even like specific job titles, but more so just like resourcing stuff.
Right.
Like, I know where to get this car. I know exactly where we're gonna shoot this. I'm gonna hit up this person, this person, this person. So don't worry about it. Like, I'll figure that out. And then we ended up shooting the album cover in Connecticut at my friend Bo's house, and I knew he had this like massive backyard. I knew exactly where we could dig it because JJ basically gave me this vision of like, I want this thing to be here and this to be here, and I'm like, okay, we could probably get this done here, get everything together. And then it's kind of similar. It's just like a project manager at the end of the day. You just like any steps along the way, you just have to kind of like watch out for all of that stuff. But same thing, like on the streaming side, I know who to hit from the Apple team, and I know who to hit from like this, and like I know with other managers if I want to link him up with like certain feature artists, like with Anna, for example. That she's one of my good friends, so I was like, she would be a really good fit for this specific song. So kind of just the like general intuition on he doesn't know that many people in the city, so like I'm kind of his eyes and ears, and he just makes the music basically.
Seems like you guys have a really good thing going on.
Yeah.
And he obviously has a very clear like creative vision.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's interesting, like your ethos seems to be like, let him do that, and then you do what he can't do.
Yeah, I just think of it as like an execution as opposed to the creative side. Like, I know he's directing and all of that now, so like I know he has because
he directed the I Don't Want to Miss You video.
Yeah.
I saw him with his notebook, and
exactly.
he had storyboarded the whole thing. It was very cool.
So he has that ability for direction and obviously making the music. So my job is just getting him in the right spaces to where he can actually do all of this stuff. So yeah, a lot of the people that he knows in New York, I've connected him with, and they've just started running from there. But I really don't prefer to be like super hands-on of, this is what you should do here, I'm just like, this is what I think, and like whatever you decide you want to do, this is how we're gonna get it done, basically. Yeah.
Sick. And he's like streaming on all platforms.
Black Hibiscus.
And what are his other brands? What's the like house?
Amoeba Studios. And Morbid Electronics.
Sick. That guy's gonna take over the world.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna help him do it.
Definitely.
That's amazing. Who are some like artists that you're really inspired by at the moment?
Musical artists, or just like general?
I mean, yeah, it's open. It's more of a broad question, actually.
Right now, my favorite DJ right now is this girl Shanti Celeste from, I actually don't know, I think she's from like northern UK or something, but she's just like one of the goats. I saw her at Deckmantle and seen a couple of other sets, and just really like everything that she's doing. I'd say other artists.
Why is she your favorite? Why is she so like sick to you?
She did this B2B with this other DJ Peach at Deck Mantle last year that I've watched on YouTube maybe like 150 times. And they just like flow so I don't really know like why I like that set over other sets specifically. Her sound is very much like a very old 90s house sound, but kind of like ethereal-ish kind of with a lot of her songs, and her own discography is like very similar to that as well. So I just haven't really heard a sound similar to hers amongst other DJs that I've heard. So really,
what's her name again?
Shanti Celeste.
Shanti Celeste. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah,
it's gonna be my homework tonight.
And I'd say other artists.
Well, who would you collaborate with if you could?
Who would I collaborate with? Naomi Sharon.
Yeah?
I got to play her after party at Gabriella like earlier this year, and she told me I was great at what I do, so I was like, damn, you are too. But I've always really liked her voice. I think that she obviously has that like Sade undertone, and I think that is really cool. But I'm starting to produce as well, so I've like started to get feature artists on stuff, and I think that that's like definitely a goal, is to have the ability to make music that I think my goal as a producer is to make music that I could put an artist on, but I could also just let it run and it would still be good.
That's it.
So there are like a good amount of artists like that who are doing similar stuff. Like who else have I been listening to recently? This guy named Alex Cassian that I also saw recently play. And he goes between playing these like kind of long ethereal house tracks similarly, but then also will just do these. He'll make these samples. He'll use like 4 devices at the same time to make some sample or something, and we'll just live loop. Yeah, and we'll just play these loops like for 5-6 minutes as a song, and it's just crazy.
It's cool to see people like pushing the like idea of what can be.
Yeah,
live
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I've been listening to a lot of his stuff, and outside of that, I can't really name that many people. Right now, I'm in this space where I don't really look for artists. I'll just look for individual tracks.
Right.
And I will dive into their discog, but there's nobody who's been like, oh my god, like I love this person. So a lot of my library is just these individual tracks from different random
you just
people.
Source, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's like I met up with Isaac Messer in London, and we kind of did like just a crate digging kind of session over like a few hours. That was so fun to get into that style of like looking at music, 'cause it's not something I do all the time. But yeah, individual like
just
tracks and like in the electronic scene like track IDs and everything is so much more of a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and what's like the future for Dennis Free?
As I said, I'm just kind of going on these 3 paths of DJing, and now producing. I'm gonna hopefully have like an EP done by October to put out in November or something.
Okay, cool.
And then the Black Hibiscus side and Apple, and I'm just gonna go 100% on all of them. And if one of them happens to go absolutely crazy, I'll have to make a decision, but until then
you're just gonna work yourself to death.
Just all 3.
Where's like somewhere you would love to perform before you die?
Right now,
That's
Deck Mantle
really
is like
Deck
Mantle is like my peak festival. I think if I performed there, I would be okay
You've won.
With dying. Yeah,
you've won. I love that.
There or what's the other one? Well, Glastonbury, I'd say. But I haven't been, so I can't really like say I want to perform there because I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't been either. It was always like, so obviously went to college here. It's always that like finals weekend, you know. So it was never really the right time. It was like the most busy school week.
I see.
Happened to always be around Glastonbury, so I've never been either. My friends love it.
Yeah, it seems crazy. I'd say maybe somewhere in Berlin. I don't know. Yeah, anywhere where they just really appreciate random music. I think those are just crowd-wise just so interesting. when you have like people you don't think you'd ever interact with, and then you get these DJs in here who
connect everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I could chat to you forever and ever and ever about thousands of topics, but can you let everybody know how to reach you on social media and find all your stuff?
Dennis Free everywhere. Level 3 Collective and Black Hibiscus.
Dennis Franklin on LinkedIn.
Dennis Franklin and Apple Music.
All right, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming.
Of course.